Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tales from the Vault. Today, this is going to be taking place in Knox County, Tennessee. I know it's been a while. Let's get into it. Hello everyone, and welcome into another episode of Tales from the Vault, where we will be doing tales from local history, childhood memories, true crime, paranormal, and legends. So sit back and let's enjoy this episode. I know it's been a while and I've not done many of these, but someone requested I do another Tales from the Vault. So today we're going to be visiting Knox County, Tennessee. And this one happened in 1986, I think is when it started happening. Let's get into it and see what happened. What happened at Meads Quarry in Knox County, Tennessee. 38 years ago, a disturbing discovery and the ensuing investigation gripped the Knox County, Tennessee community for weeks. Some of the details are still tough to hear. The happenings were so shocking and unprecedented that those involved in the case remember it vividly to this day. On October the 27th, 1986, human body pieces started showing up throughout Knox County, leading to a week-long search for whoever or whatever was responsible. Meads Quarry in South Knoxville is now a part of Imes Nature Center, where people go hiking, mountain biking, kayaking, and more. Almost 4 decades ago, however, it was an old rock quarry used by many to dump trash. It was there that a teenager who was there to meet some friends that he had made a chilling discovery. He found a human torso. I started looking around down in that garbage there, and there it laid. It was in a 20-gallon silver garbage bag. I thought it was a mannequin at first, and then I got a better look at it and it seemed that it was a body. Arms had been removed clean with a saw. George Hipshire, then a detective with the Knox County Sheriff's Office, told reporters at the scene, "You can tell it was a sow. The head had been removed." Authorities didn't know the victim's identity or why he was deceased. Certain early leads had been checked out and had been discounted, a Knox County Sheriff's official reported at the time. Dan Stewart was then a detective at Knox County Sheriff's Office and recalls the case vividly to this day. "With the unaliving so close to Halloween," he said, "some early leads had Knox County Sheriff's Office looking at this as a possible cult ritual. We haven't seen anything in the Sheriff's Department quite that gruesome," he said, reflected on the case. "People had been unalived, of course. We'd worked unaliving cases prior to this, but this was one that was unusual for our area in that level of violence." He recalls the chaos of trash bags containing body parts starting to show up around Knox County, starting October the 27th and stretching on for days. "It was unreal. The number of phone calls that we got," Stewart said. "I remember in my office, you couldn't set the phone on its cradle without it ringing again." A fisherman found the victim's head in a plastic bag floating in the Holston River. In North Knoxville, a teenager found a suitcase filled with human organs, body parts, and the tools used to take apart the body were showing up throughout Knoxville and Knox County. "We managed to get the Knoxville News-Sentinel to actually do us a composite," Stewart said, "a pretty good, accurate sketch of the victim." The detectives awaited forensic test results. Medical examiner Dr. Robert Lash did his best to make inferences about the victim without access to the entire body, which would have helped to provide more specifics. Lash estimated details about the victim's appearance, but these were difficult to confirm. The one clue Lash could clearly identify was the man's dental chart, which ran in the newspaper on November the 2nd, 1986, in the hopes a dentist might recognize it. With the help of a sketch and the dental chart, the victim was identified 2 days later as 29-year-old motorcyclist William Robert Johnston of the Isabella Towers Apartments in Knoxville. Johnston's mother had called to inquire if a missing persons report had been filed for him, and detectives began to suspect he might be the victim. The University of Tennessee Medical Center pathologists were able to confirm Johnston's identity using his dental record. Johnston grew up in Zephyr Hills, Florida, but moved to Knoxville after a serious accident around age 16. His family said he had been in a motorcycle or bicycle accident that left him in a months-long coma. One unnamed person who attended high school with Johnson said he wasn't the same after the accident. Johnston's mother said the accident left her son with a limp and speech impediment, both of which sometimes caused him mental health issues. 2 years before he was unalived, Johnston was hit by a car. That accident resulted in a concussion, several broken teeth, and a road rash, his brother said. The sketch and dental records in turn led officials to Johnston's two roommates, 36-year-old Larry Dennis Loveday and 43-year-old Dorothy Evelyn Fritz. The three shared an apartment on Washington Pike in North Knoxville. The duo were picked up less than a month after the crime for questioning. The trio lived in Isabella Towers, an apartment complex for seniors and individuals with disabilities. Each of the three had a degree of paralysis in their arms. Court documents show the three had fought about money, food, and even what to watch on TV. And the bigger dispute was simply, it was a love triangle. Stewart said, there were some affections unreturned, some physical disabilities, and some jealousy. And we think a physical relationship. Jealousy actually was the motive for the case. Loveday and Fritz's initial court appearance came a week and a half after the discovery and 2 weeks after they committed the crime in his sleep. According to the court documents, in the early morning hours of October the 22nd, 1986, Loveday took an ice pick and stuck it in the side of Johnston's head while the victim was asleep. Johnston didn't awake, but had yet expired. So Loveday then tried a plastic bag around his head and struck him with a hammer. After Johnston stopped breathing, Loveday and Fritz took the victim's car and drove it to various places in Knoxville, where Loveday purchased and gathered up items necessary for the dissection of the victim's body. Court documents show supplies included cinch garbage bags, a sow, plywood, on which the couple had laid Johnston's body in the kitchen area. He stayed there for several days before Loveday began the process of dissecting it and hiding those pieces in various places throughout the community. It started to unravel quickly, Stewart explained, once the victim was identified. It took us about 10 days to reach a point where we had enough probable cause to make an arrest and obviously charge 2 people and later convict those in criminal court. 18 months later, in April of 1988, Fritz took a plea agreement, her testimony against Loveday, in exchange for pleading guilty to second-degree unaliving charges. She was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Later that spring, Loveday's trial began. U.S. Representative John Jimmy Duncan Jr. was a judge at the time, tasked with trying felony cases. The unaliving came before his bench less than a year before taking office as a U.S. congressman. It was a case that caught the public's imagination, Duncan said, recalling the trial, calling it the most gruesome one that had come before him at the time. He said Loveday and Fritz both had physical disabilities, and their roommate, Johnston, was a large person. They didn't have the strength to move his body after they had unalived this man, and so then they came up with the idea to dissect his body. Duncan said prosecutors did not seek the unaliving penalty in Loveday's case, and the jury convicted him on first-degree unaliving. He was sentenced to an automatic life sentence. I think the jury reached the right result, and the defendant was given the maximum sentence under the law at the time, Duncan said. Duncan said, I don't have any regrets about it, and I don't have any nightmares from looking at the photos. Loveday tried appealing his case on several occasions with no success. The September 1989 decision of the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals had ruled Loveday passed in state custody in 2000, just shy of his 50th birthday. Fritz got out of prison on parole in 2002. She passed a decade later at age 69. Loveday had boasted before his capture he had committed the perfect crime. Loveday didn't deny the crime when he was confronted by detectives. He even admitted his guilt in a television interview from jail, stating he was scared of the bigger, stronger Johnston. Loveday walked with a limp. How else am I going to carry him, huh? Loveday shrugged. It's not that I want to do all that. He insisted he unalived Johnston out of fear rather than malice. The Knox County jury didn't buy it. More than 50 years earlier, an unsolved unaliving happened at the same quarry. The case has remained unsolved. It began when Knoxville police arrived at Meads Quarry on September the 13th, 1969, to investigate a cow about a burned car. They found 2 deceased men, Hubert Johnson, 45, of Straw Plains, Tennessee, and Muriel Marie, 61, were last reported together at Butch's Tavern on Gay Street around 11:30 p.m. The man left the tavern and headed to North Gay Cafe. There is no report of either man until the next day, when their bodies were discovered at the quarry nearly 4 miles away from the area that is now the Imes Nature Center. The day he went missing, Johnson was working at Bob's Auto Service alongside his 2 sons. Following an argument, Johnson left work alone. Johnson's wife, Mary, was picking up the 2 sons from work when she told investigators that she saw Hubert drive by in their yellow 1966 Pontiac. This was the last time Mary saw her husband. Marie was a former resident and manager at the Dunbar Hotel in downtown Knoxville. He had been recently hospitalized at the Mountain Home Veterans Hospital in Johnson City. He returned to Knoxville on September the 10th, 1969, just 3 days before his body was found. Officials say they located a Fairfax watch on the floorboard of the vehicle that was used as evidence and to aid in identifying the victim. Johnson was successfully identified first with the help of the car's registration and dental information provided by his wife. Mary was able to confirm the watch that was found did not belong to her husband, and leading police to investigate its ownership. Marie was finally identified after police spoke with a jeweler on Gay Street who had worked on the watch. Marie's brother also confirmed the watch belonged to his 61-year-old brother. A firearms wound Marie sustained in 1966 was discovered on one of the victims, and a copper-plated projectile. Autopsies were not conducted due to the state of the bodies. According to reports, Marie's cause of demise was ruled to be from a firearms, while Johnson's remained a mystery to this day. Another unaliving happened in Knox County in 1977 and still remains a mystery. By all accounts, Maryville boxing coach Paul Wainhurst would have been a hard man to unalive. A former local Golden Globes welterweight champion, the 54-year-old still exercised every morning, never drank alcohol, and usually skipped supper. When his remains were discovered near Cherokee Trail in 1977, authorities mistook the unidentified homicide victim for a man in his 30s, possibly younger. Then again, detectives had little to go on. The head, hands, legs, and genitals had been severed. Only a naked body marked the scene. Once experts determined the body was hers, the investigation quickly became sidetracked by second-guessing among authorities and family members whether it was actually him, prompting an exhumation less than a year later. All the while, no clear motive emerged for why anyone would target the well-respected coach, and who had founded a youth boxing program and had dedicated himself to mentoring young athletes, or how he had been unalived. Hurst was a tough customer, said Knoxville boxing legend and longtime friend, the late Ace Miller. I can't feature anybody taking him on without getting a lot of damage. The one-time Golden Gloves national president said in the weeks after Hurst's demise. Over 40 years later, authorities have yet to make any headway in what came to be known simply as the body unalivings. 2 teenage boys were the first to happen upon the gruesome scene while hiking near Cherokee Bluffs in South Knoxville on a cold Saturday morning, November the 26th, a couple of days after Thanksgiving in 1977. Rigor mortis had not set in, leading medical examiners to estimate the person might have been deceased only 6 to 8 hours. The head and neck had been taken off at the shoulders, the hands were severed a few inches above the wrist, the legs a few inches above the knees. 2 deep gashes had been sliced across the abdomen. Another wound on one of the upper arms had been made, possibly to remove an identifying mark such as a mole or tattoo. The victim's genitals were also removed. Initial reports speculated the body might have been dismembered with a chainsaw. Authorities later dropped the chainsaw theory. On closer examination, they said the extremities appeared to have been neatly severed with a fine-tooth saw. Either way, they never would find the missing body parts. David Davenport, recently retired cold case detective for Knox County Sheriff's Office, said the severing of the head and limbs likely were done to prevent the victim from being identified. But cutting off the genitals suggested something darker. It was personal. Very, said Davenport, who was not involved in the initial investigation. That usually indicates, in cases I've solved, jealousy or vindictiveness. A length of rope found wrapped around the torso, as well as body stains and marks along the ground, hinted the victim might have been unalived elsewhere and dumped at the South Knoxville site from a car. Relatives reported Hurst missing shortly after the case surfaced in the news. A week into the investigation, the Knox County Medical Examiner's Office compared spinal x-rays of the body with those of Hurst, who had been treated for a back injury years earlier. Officials deemed it matched and identified Hurst as the homicide victim, or so they thought. By January 1978, Knox and Blount County Sheriff's detectives had interviewed more than 100 people and amassed $15,000 in reward monies, but neither had brought them any closer to making an arrest. Frustrated by the pace of the agency's joint investigation, Hurst's oldest son, Paul Sonny Hurst Jr., obtained a court order that September to pry open the family mausoleum for his own exhumation of the remains. Days later, Sonny Hurst, flanked by Blount County Coroner Roy White, 2 private investigators, and the Hurst family physician, announced beyond a shadow of a doubt the body was not his father. Dr. Robert Lash, then Assistant Knox County Medical Examiner, had based his positive identification of the body as Paul Hurst on at least 15 distinct matching features found in the comparison of the size and shape of spine and pelvic bones visible in the x-rays. The body also had Paul Hurst's rare O-negative blood type. Sonny Hurst and his team of experts, however, countered with their own evidence. The body showed no signs of surgery Paul Hurst had undergone to remove varicose veins in his thighs 10 years earlier, they claimed. The victim appeared to have had a previous hernia operation, while Paul Hurst had never had any such procedure. Paul Hurst also had a smallpox vaccination on his left arm, although none was found on the victim. Stranger still, the body supposedly had double points on his right breast. Paul Hurst evidently did not. Knox County detectives were unswayed by the new claims. I'm 53 years old, and I can't see my vaccination mark either, Lash said. Famed University of Tennessee forensic anthropologist Dr. Bill Bass was asked to review the spinal x-ray as well. He confirmed Lash's initial ruling. The body was that of Paul Hurst. DNA testing was still nearly a decade away from becoming a reliable tool in criminal investigations. Both Knox County and Blount County authorities continued to pursue the investigation as there was no verified crime scene, and Sonny Hurst chased his own leads, working with White, the coroner, who was also running for Blount County sheriff at the time. The investigation split into 3 separate ones as all raced to break the case, but without agreement on the victim's identity, much less on the established crime scene or a conclusive manner of demise. The case turned cold, and Paul Hurst, even if he was alive, never reappeared. The remains were reinterred at a local memorial gardens. The grave still bears no name today. Sonny Hurst couldn't let go of the mystery. A former insurance adjuster, he became a licensed private detective and spent several years running down vague rumors of a possible organized crime connection, tracking supposed sightings of his father as far away as Florida and Louisiana. As often as he ventured down the rabbit hole, though, the son only found nothing. I've always come back to the same place, Sonny Hurst said, right back where I started from. Sheriff's detectives focused their investigation closer to home. Reba Hurst, Paul Hurst's ex-wife, was the last known person to see him alive. Although the two had divorced months earlier, they still shared their marital home where they stayed in separate bedrooms. She told authorities the two had gone out to dinner that Tuesday night before Thanksgiving. Paul Hurst had taken the week off from his job as a chemical operator at the K-25 plant in Oak Ridge. Reba Hurst said her ex-husband was planning a trip, although he never told her where. When she returned home from work Wednesday, Paul Hurst was gone. Paul Hurst's brother reported him missing after he failed to turn up for work the following Monday. If Reba Hurst knew anything, she never let on, said former Blount County Sheriff's Detective Randy Kidd. I don't think she said a lot, Kidd recalled. She said she comes and goes, and that's about it. Detectives seized several items during the search of the Hurst home 2 months after the body was discovered, including a saw, a hatchet, and a mattress bed springs from Paul Hurst's room. Authorities also recovered a .25 caliber shell casing from underneath his bed. According to Knox County Sheriff's Office case file, no firearm was ever recovered. The evidence was forwarded to the FBI for analysis, but laboratory tests proved inconclusive. Meanwhile, investigators uncovered another curious aspect of Paul Hurst, his surprisingly active social life. For all the time he spent commuting to and from his day job in Oak Ridge and managing his boxing program in Blount County, he still managed to juggle several girlfriends. For him to be such a ladies' man, though, I never heard of any husband be of a suspicious character, Kidd said. Women seemed drawn to Paul Hurst, and without much apparent effort on his part, said Sonny Hurst's wife, Florence Hurst. He didn't go out of his way, she said, but when they got divorced, you couldn't go over there to see the man without these women calling. Knox County Sheriff's Office archived investigator files included an unconfirmed report that Paul Hurst's younger son, Steve Hurst, was upset about his father's affairs and bugged the home phone, supposedly at Reba Hurst's request, to eavesdrop on those conversations. Both were interviewed by detectives but never charged. Steve Hurst passed away in 2002. Reba Hurst, who later remarried, passed away in 2009. Knox County's lead detective in the crime, James Smitty Smith, passed away in 1988 without seeing the case closed. In 1983, he said the unsolved homicide cost him many sleepless nights of wondering. I put 6,000 miles on a new car just chasing down leads, Smith said at the time. The past 4 decades have robbed Sonny Hurst of any hope he once had. If that ain't him, we're in one heck of a mess, he admits. The son now concedes his father likely was the victim of the attack, by whom or how many he doubts he will ever know. He said he has his own suspicion, but he realizes they are only that. It's got to have something to do with those women, he guessed. Sonny Hurst discounts any speculation that Reba Hurst or any other family member may have been involved, though he questioned his mother, and if he did suspect her, he would have reported her to authorities himself, he contends. I made sure I stayed with my mom till she passed, he said, and she never came up with anything, never said anything. The weight of so many unanswered questions is too much to carry sometimes for the son who admired his father so much. Even now, he has trouble recalling the episode without breaking down. He wonders where his father suffered before his passing, but more importantly, Sonny Hurst still struggles with why it happened at all. He was perfect to me. In August 1987, the Island Home community in South Knoxville sought support to close off Meads Quarry. The quarry had become a dumping ground since the Williams Limestone Company shut down its operations there in the late 1970s. The community efforts were successful. In 2001, Meads Quarry was purchased by Knox County with plans for the property to be leased to Imes Nature Center. In 2005, the quarry reopened to the public as a park and natural area. That was the case of what was referred to as what happened at Meads Quarry. I know it was a lot. It was kind of long, but I hope you found this informative. I never heard of this till I did some research. So comment down below and tell me what you think about this. And don't forget to like, to subscribe, to hit that notification button to share this video. And until next time, Tales from the Vault. Bye.